All good ripe fruit that we eat must retain some acidity, be it an apple, a peach, a plum, a blackcurrant. That's the same with wine. Or, immediately, the acidity is puckering up my mouth, it's racing over my palate, and it's really waking me up. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. Quickly transformed. Now, in a cool area, the sun may only produce enough sugar to give a wine of, say, 7%. In a hotter area, the wine may naturally reach 14%. Facts at your fingertips. This section tells you everything you need to know about wine and how it gets from the grape to your glass. The appeal to its flavour. This wine here is a young Beaujolais Nouveau, and it's got a bright, fresh, pinky red kind of colour, and the flavour is going to be all youthful vibrancy, all freshness. It's like fruit. White wines can range in colour from a pale, almost greeny white to a full, rich gold. Now the pale greeny white ones are likely to have a tangy flavour, a sharper, a greener flavour, whereas the gold ones are likely to taste more golden, richer, and it's rich, it's round, it's almost syrupy in its tropical fruit ripeness. I've looked at the wine, I've smelt the wine, I've tasted the wine. Now I'm going to take a moment to consider. We talk about California Cabernet, Australian Chardonnay, German Riesling, Bordeaux, Burgundy and Champagne in France. So an atlas is an essential part of any ideal vineyards all around the world, notably in Sauternes in France. It shrivels the grapes and it intensifies the sugar, and all the great sweet wines of the world are made from grapes affected by botrytis. I've got a Sauternes here from an excellent year. What do I get? Hand-to-mouth system of picking up a bottle of wine for dinner on the way home from work, to a point when you're a bit more in control. And it doesn't matter where you store those wines. Harmless. And it doesn't mean your wine is corked. Occasionally, however, during the manufacturing process, the cork can become infected, and this infection imparts a peculiarly pungent flavour when the cork... Well, what you have to do, I'm afraid, is very gently push the cork into the wine. Do it gently so that the wine doesn't splash out. It's not particularly pretty, but it doesn't affect the flavour of the wine. And it also means that when you pour the wine, be careful for the very first pour so that it doesn't shoot out of the bottle. But I have got a device called a butler's friend, which you can use to save that cork. Now what you do here is put these 3 prongs into the bottle. You push them down like that, and then you waggle them. This one is a Fino Sherry, a dry, fortified wine from Andalusia in southern Spain. It's just about the driest and lightest of all fortified wines, and it should have an appetizing... The smell? Well, when you're dealing with dry sherries or sherries of any kind, you're not dealing with mainstream smelly exposed. It reminds me, oh yes, of bread yeast. Bread yeast, very fresh bread yeast, which actually is very important because, of course, the yeasty quality I'm getting on this comes from the way it is made. The wine actually is made... that's very nice. The qualities, the strange flavours, soften down slightly in the wine. Funnily enough, there's a little bit of acidity now rising in the wine, which is quite attractive and quite refreshing. But that, yeah. Now, the Shiraz is the grape variety, and it's also known as the Syrah in many other countries, particularly in France. The lovely thing about the Shiraz or the Syrah grape is it's got a tremendous ability to age, and at the same time, it's approachable when it's very, very young. Now, South Australia and the Barossa Valley in particular have got loads of Shiraz. Tons and tons of smells, about right. Gosh, I mean, all the kind of red and black fruits you can think of bursting out of that glass. Barrels, American oak barrels, which the wine has been aged in before being bottled. I think it's about time I had a taste of this. This is the business. Wow. I mean, the flavour is so intense in your mouth. There is a bit of tan in there, bitterness. Chardonnay grapes, and it's made by the Champagne method. But remember, Australia is a warm country, and it's very, very different from the cold north of France, where Champagne itself comes from. So let's look at it. Well, there's a lovely Small bubble running up the side of the glass, and see that beautiful foam around the top. That's what the champagne... The bubbles foam in my mouth. I love that, because I really do drink sparkling wine for the effect of the bubbles as much as the flavour. As it happens, the flavour's very good. It's soft. Part of the Rhone Valley in France, and it uses the Syrah grape. That's also called Shiraz in other parts of the world. This Syrah grape is a wonderful variety for two reasons. It can age as long as you want, lightly at the edges there. It's about 4 years old. That's what I'd expect. So let's have a smell of this. Oh, yes. Immediately, what you want from the Syrah. Tons and tons of fruit bursting out of the glass. Raspberries. Yeah, this is smashing. All that fruit's still there. It's really strong blackcurrant, blackberry, raspberry, loganberry, all that spectrum of flavours. This one's a red Burgundy from France. It comes from the village of Volnay in the Côte de Beaune, and it uses the Pinot Noir grape. Burgundy is famous for elegance, grape to grow, but Volnay is particularly famous for delicate wines, and I hope that's what we're going to have here. The colour is beautiful. It's quite a new colour, and it's quite deep. Plums, black plums kind of sweetness, and there's definitely a rather toasty quality because the man who made this has used oak barrels to age his wine. No tannins. So what I'm looking for in this wine is wonderful, cool flavours. Let's see what I get. Well, the colour is very, very pale. A very almost, it's a white-green kind of paleness. That acidity is very important in this wine. It's like lime juice splashed on the wine. But the lovely thing about this wine is you get that slate dryness coming up the edge of the wine. And just at the end, it seems to soften out into honey. Beautifully made wine. What have we got? We've got asparagus. I mean it, we have got asparagus there. We've got gooseberries. You know what gooseberry jam is like? That sort of curious mixture of aggression, tartness, but some sugar too. You've got that. I tell you what you've also got in my mouth. But it fills my mouth with all these green flavours. The apple and the lemon and the lime are really coming through now. And right at the end of it, it's not aggressive, it's not harsh, it's not raw. It's filling my mouth. It's very, very nice, unusual wine. And they're dried so that the grapes shrivel, and that's how they intensify the sugar. The colour of this is quite fresh. It's got a nice gold colour, but it's fresh like fresh baked bread. There's a sort of bread yeast quality. There's also a dried apple kind of smell. That's the fruit in it, the kind of dried apple you get in breakfast cereal. This wine is vintage port, a sweet, fortified wine from the Douro Valley in Portugal. It's one of the most powerful and one of the most long-lived of all fortified wines. Now, the grapes are grown under torrid conditions on purple youth still. That's 11 years old and it's hardly started. That's rich, but the grapes themselves still boiling and fermenting in the vat. It's that heady. It's very sweet, but it's very strong. It's really warming my throat. This wine is a Pinot Noir from the Carneros area of California. Carneros is just north of San Francisco and is famous for being remarkably cool in a hot state like California. That's important because it's fresh, cherry red. It looks very, very inviting. Beautiful cherry smell and a plum smell, but something else. You want the Pinot Noir to give you fruit, you want the Pinot Noir to give you perfume and delicacy, and that's just what you get here. A lovely cherry fruit to it. The orange blossom is there. There's something slightly like... This is a Sancerre. It's made from the Sauvignon Blanc grape in the Loire Valley in France. Now, as soon as I think of the Sauvignon Blanc, I want snappy, tangy flavours. But in France, often tinge coming into the wine. Nice, pale, green-looking wine. It doesn't have a rush of strong green fruit flavours. What it does instead is have a rather cold, chalky. The wine is very dry. It's very full in the mouth though, and I don't get anything piercing and sharp. I get more of a rather chalk earth kind of quality, maybe that flint thing coming in as well. The coffee beans, I don't get them so much on the palate as I did when I smelt the wine, but instead I get a honeyed roundness coming into the wine. It's very wines which winemakers all around the globe have tried to emulate. The thing about a Bordeaux wine is restraint. It's a certain reserve, but a quiet power, which is a deep, powerful mouthful. Yes, there's lots of smell there, but it's not like tasting a sort of New World Cabernet where you could immediately see fruit flavours. Everything's... The first thing one gets here, tannin. Tannin is what the Cabernet Sauvignon grape has, blackcurrant, quietly black cherry. The earthiness comes through again, and I also get a slight softening at the edge, and that's because they've used new oak barrels just to soften and age the wine. And that comes from a small area just south of Paris. It's a cool area, but the Chardonnay just manages to creep to ripeness on the particular limestone clays of the region. Now this coolness is very important because what Chablis has done is make a virtue out of its lack of fruit, make a virtue out of its It's lemony, it's sort of chalky, and that's actually what I should expect. I don't want rich, round, apricot-y kind of flavours, tropical fruit flavours, or even oak flavours. I can find those elsewhere. What I need from... This is a Riesling wine from the Coonawarra area of Australia. Now the Riesling wine likes a cool climate. Coonawarra is fairly cool, but only in Australian terms. And remember, Australia is a fairly hot country. The smell, I get the acidity on the smell. There's quite a strong, rather lime juice kind of acidity, but there is a sort of ripeness coming through as well on the wine. Warm, ripe, peachy fruit there. Even a little bit of fatness in the wine. And strangely, a sort of gasoline-y kind of quality running through at the end of the wine. Now, don't worry about that. Or botrytis affects the vineyards, and this is a fungus which shrivels the grapes and intensifies the sugar in the grapes. And that's what allowed you to make a very, very sweet wine. That smell is a very rich smell. It immediately comes up at me with pineapple and barley sugar kind of smells. And there's a spice there as well, something like cinnamon or cloves. And that's lovely. It is sweet. That pineapple really does come up in the wine. The barley sugar and almost a butterscotchy quality coming through as well. The spice is still there. There's a sort of acidity, a rather volatile acidity, like as though you'd bruised a very, very ripe peach. And that's also a thing you often get in botrytis-affected wines. This is a lovely, rich wine. And it certainly has developed a beautiful bouquet. The first thing that comes out of the glass is mint. Now, mint's quite rare in Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's absolutely delicious when you get it. And fine, I want some tannin with Cabernet Sauvignon. But with the tannin, I get a sweet blackcurrant and black cherry fruit, something like black olives, which is fascinating, coming around the edge as well. The mint is still there, and also, at the end, there's this spicy, gentle softness from new oak barrels. Very nice Cabernet Sauvignon. The bubbles. That's what's good about champagne. Those bubbles run up and down in your mouth. They foam in your mouth. Now, the flavour? It's good, it's quite acid, but then the grapes that champagne is made from are acid. But the acidity is tempered by a roundness, a slight... The wine really fills my mouth. You certainly get that tropical fruit quality in it, and it also fills and fattens out into a syrupy richness in the mouth. But it's not quite the point. The whole thing about champagne is celebration. The whole thing about champagne is making you feel good. It's one of those wines where the effect is actually as important as the flavour. So what have we got? Well, lots of nice small bubbles running up the glass. That's good. I like that. Sort of green apple sharpness, but there's around that sharpness a sort of rather biscuity, toffee-ish quality. And this is because the wine has been in contact with yeast. And yeast has a nice